Mixing with Mike mixing tip, how to get hyped high end from a vocal without sibilance. This is a very common question that I get. I think I even have another video somewhere, tip that is very similar to this, but I thought I'd redress it a little bit with maybe some fresh ideas from maybe what I did on the previous video, and just kind of talk a little bit about this. This is something that has been very common for a long time, and it is a process that goes all the way back, believe it or not, to Dolby noise reduction technology, where certain producers and engineers would use just the front end of a noise reduction system, which would really hyper compress the high frequencies, and but only open up the encoded signal and not decode it, which would do the opposite and bring back the high frequencies to normal. And what you would get is this really, really high-end kind of sizzle on vocals. This very airy kind of quality, which is really great for background vocals. Now, there are many ways to do this with plugins, and you hear this in a lot of tracks that are out there now. So I thought I'd kind of just address it real quick. There are many ways to do this. Just have a normal compressor here. No equalization on the vocal, so we're just kind of starting fresh here. One of the ways to kind of bring up a little bit of hype and presence in the vocal is by doing low-level compression. So low-level compression takes signals that fall below a threshold and compress them upward. And usually the energy that comes from low-level stuff is more high-frequency information. So with things like vocals, in most instruments, most of the high-frequency response comes at the attack, or in a vocal would be in the consonants of words, but the syllables are more RMS driven, and the frequency response on the high end drops down. So you really get most of that articulation on those particular things. Now, consonants like S's and CH's and T's sometimes will give you a sibilant or a burst of high frequency energy that shoots through, and this is particularly true if you're recording with a condenser mic. One of the reasons why tube mics are so popular, it's basically a condenser mic with the tubes that warm up and kind of control a little bit of that sibilance. So there's a common thing, especially if somebody has a naturally sort of bright voice, where sometimes that can sound very cold and harsh sounding. So I'm going to show you some techniques to kind of help. And this is one, which is just a max volume. MV2 also works pretty well with this. And essentially all we're going to do is we're going to take this low-level threshold and we're going to bring it up, and this is going to bring up high frequencies in the voice. So first, let's just kind of listen to the vocal here just on its own.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying.
So there's already a lot of natural breathiness in there, but not as much high frequency content. So now let's just kind of swing some of this stuff in here, and then let's just kind of hear this with a threshold of -30.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid.
And just that alone will add some air into it. Now, it can also bring up a little bit of harshness, so you hear that here and there. And there's also a mid-range area that I could probably dip out, which would kind of help to open that up. In fact, I think what I'm just going to do real quick is just kind of go ahead and take that as like a little bit of some kind of a...
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying.
And that'll help to kind of open up the top end a little bit. Another thing, oddly enough, that you can do to kind of sharpen that, believe it or not, is to do a high-pass filter. And if you have a really sharp cue, what it'll do is it'll kind of focus the top end.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying.
Whereas some of that stuff on the top just is kind of noisy.
Come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid, and I don't.
So even though it's quite up there and it's subtle, that really sharp cue on the top end has a tendency to kind of focus the high frequencies a little bit more. So you might want to play with an idea like that. In terms of just like an equalization approach, if you select the right vintage EQ, this can actually also be really powerful. So one of the EQs that is sort of a classic add-on for this type of thing would be a 1073 EQ, because the high frequency boost is a 12 kilohertz, which gets a little bit higher above the sibilance area, you have to consider that even with a 10 kilohertz shelf, which is still pretty far above Sibilance, that 10 kilohertz is sort of in the middle of the boost or attenuation, and so it's going to affect a broader range. And especially when you get to some vintage components, what can sometimes happen is that can sort of bleed over a bit down farther in the line and end up bringing out more sibilance. But this 12K is nice and smooth, and what's really cool, especially if you have a plugin like the Shep 73 that has a bit of harmonic distortion and a low mid warming, that will help to enhance the effect of the high frequencies being added in.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid.
Now, this is still bringing in a little bit of sibilance, so I'm going to cut back on the max volume here and hold off on that because I think that's grabbing too much of a lower area. And I'm going to show you one other technique that you can do. There's a couple ways of doing it. One, if you want to keep it all in the same track, and you happen to have a C1 compressor gate plugin. This is a really cool one. I'm going to show you how to use this in two ways. Now, we're going to bypass the expander section, which is over here, and we're just going to use the, for right now anyway, and now we're just going to use the compressor circuit. And what I can do here is there are three modes that it works in. I can do in wideband mode, so the compression is applied to all frequencies. Sidechain mode means that the signal is filtered before the trigger. So you're filtering away stuff that you don't want, so it only triggers on stuff that you do want. And the other is split mode. And what's really cool about this is that it will only apply the compression in the red area you see here. So what I want to do is I want to go to a high pass filter and switch it around here. And I want to keep this up fairly high, maybe up in the 12 kilohertz range or so, somewhere in there. And I can even sharpen the Q if I want, so that it's, pretty tight on the top there. What I want to do is I'm just going to kind of swing in, whatever, 3-to-1-ish ratio, very fast attack, and I want to have a long release on it, right? So I want this to kind of sustain out. The idea here is that what I'm going to do is I want to have like some pretty heavy compression, but it's only applying the compression to the high frequencies.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute, come sit there with me.
So
I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell you. You're scared I might fail.
So what I really want to do is I really want to get this compressing pretty heavily here. I'm going to lighten up the ratio, right in the ratio
take
here.
A moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying.
So I'm going to lower the ratio here.
Stop for a minute, come sit there with me.
And I'm going to make sure my look ahead is in there so it's grabbing the information quickly. And then what I want to do with this is I'm going to use the makeup gain. Now what's cool about this is it's only because I'm getting like 12 dB of gain reduction. But what I want to do is I want to bring up the makeup gain, and this will only put makeup gain on the high frequency energy. So the idea here is that I can now take and make up for what I'm losing here. But now what happens is because the signal is so compressed, it's extremely dense.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell you.
And this is here what it
You're
sounds like,
fail
lowering the
ya.
frequency.
And so you're leaving here before it goes wrong. Don't you know you can't keep running from where you belong?
So listen to it without and with.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid.
So there's still some sibilance in there, but that's kind of existing prior to all of this, and we can kind of deal with that. And if I were going to deal with that, I would deal with it prior to this. So you could hear this, and this is kind of tacked onto the top of the Shep EQ. And so somewhere in there, usually after the compression, is where you want to put the de-esser. So you usually want to even the signal out so the de-esser works consistently. If you put it first in the chain, usually what ends up happening is it doesn't act as consistently. You need the compression to kind of even out the vocal a bit first, so that when it goes into the de-ester will act consistently. Otherwise, you'll end up with some words that just get sucked completely away, and then you get others that aren't de-est at all. So, so that's the basic end on that. Now, if this is creating too much noise, which it can do as part of the process here, you can also gate it down. And the gate, if we put this also in split mode, will only gate down on that high frequency energy. So you can basically set it.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell you. You're scared I might fail you.
And then what that can do is that can help to control any noise that you might be bringing up with the high frequency energy. So, and let's just see, let's unbypass it.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell you. You're scared I might fail you, and so you're leaving here before it goes wrong.
So we got an area there where obviously he's just kind of continuously
Slow down,
singing.
baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear.
And so we want to set this actually so up a little bit higher so that it does shut off but doesn't cut out words.
Baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear.
And in this case, it's not really particularly that important, but you can get, you get the basic idea from it. Sometimes that becomes an issue depending upon the original recording. Another way of going about this, if this is like a little bit too complicated, is to just take the vocal and just duplicate it. So create a duplicate of the track, and then from here what you can do is you can put a pretty heavy compressor on it. So what it'll do is just like, really compress the living crap out of it. So I'm just going to back down all of these guys, and I'm going to bypass this guy for a second. And all I'm going to really do here in this case is just
slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying.
So here what I want to do is
for a minute, come sit there with me.
I'm going to, this is going to just compress the living crap out of the signal here. And so I can actually bring up the gain here if I need to. And then what I'm going to do here is I can take this, and now I can control more specifically how I want to filter this. And now I could just basically pull this right up to the top end, keep it really tight.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying.
And now I can really focus in on what works.
For a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell you. You're scared I might fail you, and so you're leaving here before it goes wrong. Don't you know you can't keep running from where you belong?
So what's happening here on this end, if you look at it, is I have some really heavy compression, very fast attack, and a very long release. In other words, I don't want this to really shut down. I want it to kind of stay as hyper compressed as possible. The reason why I do it prior to the EQ is that it's very hard to get it to compress that heavy if you're only using frequencies above like 12 kilohertz. So what we're doing here is I'm creating a parallel chain here, in which, let me just cut these guys here. I can just add the air in as a separate parallel channel.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell you. You're scared I might fail you, and so you're leaving here.
And now if I do that along with
wrong. Don't you know you can't keep running from where you belong?
And then if you wanted to put something like a gate on this end of things, then that would be very easy to do. Just go ahead, set up a simple C1 gate. The easy way to do it is to just sort of pick a bus and then feed that bus from the vocal itself. What bus did I use? I think it was 16. And yep, 16. And then what I typically do is I feed it in pre-fader. So regardless of my fader rides and level adjustments, I can just get it to consistently track with whatever it is that I'm doing here. And then I can just use this to sort of shut down the voice when...
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell you. You're scared I might fail you, and so you're leaving
And if
here before
this is
it
also
goes
good
wrong.
because what I can do here on this is if it is bringing a little bit too much sibilance, I can slow down the attack so that it doesn't cut through as much, and soften the release if I want to.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid.
And so basically what's happening is you can control there again, like the noise and stuff. And you don't even have to have it go down that much. So right now the floor is infinite. I can make the floor just, make it drop like, 10 dB or something like that. And that will just kind of make it so it doesn't completely disappear and sound unnatural.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying.
Without?
Stop for a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell.
One of the problems you have with this is, of course, that you're going to have some gain on to make up for on the output. That we're not losing that from the gate here, but just in the general energy of it, because in order to hear that, you have to bring that up so much, because the majority of the RMS level signal is obviously way below that, and we're filtering below what amounts to like 12K. So that's not a lot of energy there.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying.
But what this does is it helps to control any kind of sibilant energy. The fast attack is really critical to kind of making that work. There are many plugins that do similar types of things, like exciter plugins and stuff like that. You can employ some of those types of things. You can get a mixed response with that. Some of them will give you a bit of a little bit also of a phase distortion, which may be cool. We'll add a little bit of a sort of phasey effect to the sound, which may be something that you're looking for. You could also feed this off into a chorusing type of thing to kind of spread it out. Also, one other thing to consider if you're feeding into a short reverb. So if I just set up here, and I'm just kind of winging this here, so let's just kind of see how it goes. If I were to just, I'll just kind of set up a generic reverb here, so nothing really that special. Maybe what would be good is like a plate reverb. I'll kill the early reflections, and let's just see here. I'll go with like a smaller size, and I'm going to kind of make the reverb kind of short here.
Slow down, baby, take a moment.
Do a little solo isolate here, and I'm going to feed this from bus 17, 18. And we'll feed this into bus 17 and 18.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell you. You're scared.
All right, so now we got a little bit of phasiness here, because I got a really short reverb here. I can kind of expand this out. One thing that is going to be really important here is also to get a de-esser in there. And what you want to do feeding into the reverb is you want to de-ess pretty heavily.
Slow down, baby, take a moment.
I mean, really get brutal with it.
I can't hear what you're saying.
So you really want to suck all the life out of the S's so that when it hits the reverb, whatever that reverb and that reverb timing is, it's not going to, you punish the output, and that's going to allow you to kind of really work with generating that high frequency energy without having it just like cut through like a knife.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell you. You're scared I might fail you, and so you're leaving here before it goes wrong. Don't you know you can't keep running from.
And actually, the de-essing thing is not a bad idea in any realm. Like if you wanted to make like a longer reverb and you wanted to keep the presence of the voice without having it cut through on the reverb sound, or just doing like a very quick, like short kind of reverb. Sometimes bringing the early reflections helps.
Baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute, come sit there with me.
Without?
I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell you. You're scared I might fail you, and so you're leaving here before it goes wrong. Don't you know you can't keep running from where you belong again? Oh yeah.
So you get the basic idea. You can really hear. I'll just play a little bit more of the verse there.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell you. You're scared I might fail you.
I'm also gonna put this.
So you're leaving here.
Just one other quick, just to kind of deal with this, because there still is a little bit of a sibilance issue here, but I'll deal with it on a more.
Slow down, baby, take a moment and breathe. I can't hear what you're saying. Stop for a minute, come sit there with me. I can see you're afraid, and I don't know what to tell you. You're scared I might fail you, and so you're leaving here before it goes wrong. Don't you know you can't keep running from where you belong?
And I think you get the basic idea there. Obviously, you can tweak it. I just kind of am winging it here just with like some basic ideas, and obviously they can be honed in or focused a little bit better, but you could definitively hear that presence energy in there. And even if you need to kind of sidechain trigger a little bit of compression or de-essing on some of the high stuff, you can really focus that in and get it so you get that air and presence in the vocal. Well, anyway, that's just a quickie tip on maybe not so quick tip the way I kind of mouthed off or just kind of went on and on about it, but mixing with mic mixing tip, how to get high end from a vocal without sibilance.